Recording. Matt Sullivan, how you doing, man?
Hey, brother. Good to see you again.
Hey,
Thanks for
man,
having me.
I'm so glad we were able to work this out, and I'm so glad that we were introduced by a mutual friend, John Austinson, who's been on the podcast pretty recently himself. But I've had a couple of really interesting conversations since being introduced, so I'm very excited to have you dropping in on the Path to Freedom podcast with me. So thanks for making time.
Yeah, man. No, seriously. Thanks for having me, and I'm really excited to talk with you today.
Yeah, I know it's going to be a good conversation, and very excited to get into it. So, maybe start off just by giving a little bit of your story and kind of introducing yourself to the audience. I know I was fascinated, just hearing a little bit of your background and, how you even got to the point of owning your own business. So tell us a little bit about what you're up to now and kind of even how you got to this point.
Yeah, right on, man. So I live in Charleston, South Carolina, and own a commercial janitorial company. So what we do is we provide recurring janitorial services. We sell consumable products, soap, sanitizers, paper towels, things like that.
Yep.
And we also clean your floors, your carpets, your hard floors. And then also we do windows as well. So yeah, it's, we're extremely lucky to be in the industry we're in right now, all things considered.
Yeah.
And very different from my background. So I'll just jump into that because a lot of people find that pretty interesting when they.
It is, yeah.
It's usually like, wait, you did what? And now you're where? So after I graduated from the University of South Carolina with a degree in theater and went into the theater arts as an actor and a writer, sketch comedian, things like that, which was great. And then I sort of stumbled into, because I needed a night job, I stumbled into working for the Blue Man Group in Chicago. And I did that for roughly 12 years. So I started tearing tickets in Chicago, slowly kept building my way up. And by my end of my tenure with them, after 11 plus years, ended up being the head of properties for Blue Man Group in Las Vegas, and with a stop in New York City along the way. So that's what I did before owning a janitorial company. So let the questions begin, right?
Yeah, well, it's so wild. I mean, when you first, because John just kind of introduced us like via email, and I was like, well, let's jump on the phone and like talk a little bit and see if it makes sense to have you on the podcast. And you start telling me the story, and I'm like, oh yeah, this is going to be great for the podcast, because it's very different. It's a very different path than like a lot of entrepreneurs out there. And I could probably count on, both hands, the number of guests I've had come on that, started off with, I've pretty much been an entrepreneur since childhood. I had a paper route, or I was selling candy at school, or, something like that, pretty much the kind of lifelong entrepreneur, mindset, which is awesome. But, you took a very different path. And I do want to have you talk a little bit more about your experience, working in theater and producing some of these very large, successful shows like Blue Man, and also kind of what you've learned from that and how you've been able to apply some of those learnings to business ownership. Because I know we got into a little bit of that in one of our previous conversations. But, what even kind of sparked the idea for you that, hey, I think I may want to transition out of theater and maybe own a business?
Yeah, it's a great question, because my friends, when I told them what I was going to do, they were like, wait, what? What are you doing? Because
they're like, what are you smoking?
Exactly. Right. And so really after, and I could probably go into this a little bit at length in a little bit, but really what struck my wife and I met my wife at Blue Man Chicago, and got married during our time at Blue Man when we were in New York City. Our first son, Henry, was born, and we found ourselves in Las Vegas, and it was going very well. Our son was now 3 years old. And really, we were like, it's time to maybe do something else. We had really both worked our butts off and had a great success with Blue Man. And I can't say enough great things about my experience with Blue Man Group. It was just life-changing. I owe so much to that experience, for just so many reasons why. Just the ability to do your thing, to fit into the culture, to prove yourself, and to grow with the company if you're willing to do the work and to be able to keep up with something that's just like a rocket ship.
Yeah, I bet it was a very fast-paced lifestyle.
It really was. And with all the success of that show, I learned very early on the reason why that show was successful is because it did its own thing. It
Mm-hmm.
was very strong on its culture. Even though the show was filled, everybody loved Blue Man, you know, it was just an exciting thing to talk about. Every single day, we were trying to make it better. Like, it was never good enough. Like, we wanted to innovate. We wanted to keep having, you know, commentary on what was going on. So even if the audience who had seen the show multiple times, which a lot of people did,
Yeah.
you know, they may not see all the little changes we would do, but we would every single day, you know, and it got exhausting, you know.
I bet.
But that feeds into sort of me wanting to do my own thing and how it's affecting me now. But every day it was, hey, let's try to make this piece of equipment lighter, or let's make it a little bit easier for the performer to use, or, hey, you know, let's make sure everyone understands this a little bit better. So it was really about the standards of practices and never being good enough, right?
Yeah.
Like, every day we could make it better. So that was a huge learning experience for me, and the ability to fail, right? So, you know, but what are you gonna do about it, right? So there are plenty of times where it's like, and when I was at Blue Man, you know, people refer to me as Sully, you know, Sullivan. So, you know, people call you Sully.
Yeah.
But you know, when I came into working for Blue Man, I didn't have a technical theater background, right? So I had studied performance, you know, and when I came in, it was really just gonna be a night job, so I could go out and audition for acting roles during the day. So I started out tearing tickets, but I fell in love with the show, so I kept learning more about what's the next available job, right? Now I'm backstage. Now I'm part of the technical crew, and I'm learning that. Right. And I just kept applying myself, being a good coworker. It was very much a family atmosphere. And I just was like, I really want to keep learning more. So I did. And I kept going after every job open that came. I interviewed for every job opening. And I just kept getting promoted because I was willing to do the work. You know, I was, I think I was fun and nice to work for. And I was producing at a high level. And really that confidence that they would instill in people in the show, you could move up all the way up. I ended up being the technical head of props on the Las Vegas Strip, right? When I started as a guy tearing tickets. I mean, that's pretty interesting, right?
Well, and it's not even what you studied.
Not at
So
all.
yeah, very, very interesting.
Yeah. So that, you know, so here we are, you know, cut to years later, we're in Las Vegas, and we knew that one day, this amazing experience, this wonderful gift that we had of Blue Man, it's still a show, and one day it'll probably end, right? And it's not just us anymore. Now we're parents.
Sure.
And we knew that it is a much better time to look for the next thing, that new experience, that life-changing thing, while things are good, rather than having to make some rash decision that say the show closes. So you know, we had a little bit of maturity in that decision there.
That's smart.
Yeah. And, you know, for me personally, I would really have these thoughts at night when I was going to bed or when I had some time alone where I'm like, I think my brain needs a new conversation. Like, it needs a new thing. Like, I've always been that way. I've always been willing to say, you know, this has been my life for so long, but now I really want to do this. I'm very comfortable with jumping in, or just, you know, one of my favorite taglines ever, I don't think it's the one best ever written, is "Just do it" by Nike, right?
Sure. Yeah.
I don't want to do this anymore. Be very honest with yourself. Just do it.
Yeah.
So that's what really led us to start looking outside of our sort of corporate job.
Well, to me, that makes sense because, I mean, even though you said, you know, at Blue Man, you're constantly, you know, tweaking it. You're always trying to dial it in and make sure that it's the best performance and the best experience for the guest possible. But I imagine after years and years of doing it, you know, you kind of did get to a point where you're like, hey, I've got this. I've gotten really good at this. You know, this has been an amazing ride, but I'm kind of ready to challenge myself with something else. And I think you told me offline, you guys were doing 2 or 3 shows a day, 365 days a year. Is that right?
Yeah. So in Vegas, you would do 2 shows a day every day, right? Like every day.
Yeah. So that's a lot of repetition.
It's a lot of repetition. And, you know, it's not just doing the show at night. I mean, you're working all day and morning.
Sure, I bet.
Things that were broken, to R&D, to meetings, you know, or maybe we're doing a on-air appearance or a morning show. I mean, it was all, and that's the thing too, it was all encompassing, right? Which is fine. for us when we were like in our late 20s, early 30s, but now I'm getting a little bit older. I've got a child,
Yeah.
you know, I had to work every Christmas, every holiday, you know, all these things, and you're working for somebody else. So, and we knew too that after working that amazing experience, I don't know if I could work for anybody else, right? Because now I've got habits and things, and I'm able to go to work in shorts and all this other kind of stuff. And
Yeah,
you
it'd be
know,
hard to go to a cubicle, right?
yeah, I was like, I can't do it. I can't work for somebody else. And we were really, and again, too, when you work in an environment like that, it also, you gain a lot of self-confidence, not arrogance, a lot of self-confidence,
Sure.
because a lot, you know, there were, you know, when I worked in New York City, we put in a brand new show, right? And you put a brand new show in that's been already running for 20 years, whatever it was. That's a big, big thing to do. It's very difficult. Those are very long days,
I bet.
very long months. It's a lot. So that went well when we did that. But then when we moved to the Vegas show, we did it again. Now we're going to put a brand new show on the Vegas Strip. So I just happened to be in the right place at the right time with a heck of a lot of responsibility put on my shoulders, to be one of the technical heads of a show on Vegas Strip, when the show was probably running at like a $30 million investment, right? And now you got time crunch. The advertising's out. We're opening on this day. Everything has to work. That's a lot of pressure, man.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
after doing that twice, I did that. That was basically 2 straight years of what you would call a load in, or, you know, a revamp, or whatever you want to call it. And that's exhausting, right? It's
I can
exhausting.
imagine just from your explanation of it.
It was exhausting. You know, but at the same time, it's such an amazing collaborative experience with so many different pieces and so many different egos. Um, but when that comes together and that curtain goes up and that audience has a positive experience, that
Yeah.
there's no feeling like that. I mean, you know, obviously nothing's better than your children being born and getting married and all that. But on a professional level, you worked so hard where you're basically crazy at this point, right? And you're, you know, and all the things you had to deal with your teams and, you
Mm-hmm.
know, functions and vendors and all these things to make that moment happen. And it goes well, and you get a standing ovation, and it
Yeah.
worked.
Yeah.
And you had it as a team. That's an amazing experience. And that's hard to recreate unless you find a way to have your own company or something like that. And that was our thought process. Like,
Well,
yeah.
that makes so much sense. I mean, I can imagine. I'm not musically inclined, but I can imagine that's a similar feeling to, you know, a musician being on stage in front of a huge audience and just, you know, playing an amazing set, and like you said, getting a uh standing ovation. I mean, there's like a dopamine trigger, you know, when that happens, right? And that I can imagine becomes addictive, not in like a self-destructive type of way, but that's like something that once you experience that, especially if you're experiencing it on a regular basis, you're kind of looking for, all right, where else can I kind of, you know, get that dopamine fixed professionally? And so to me, it actually makes a lot of sense now that you explain it that way, that that's kind of what led you to business ownership when you decide, hey, it is time to make a transition. But, you know, like you said, not probably going to enjoy going to work for someone else, especially in, you know, a setting or with a culture that's not what I've been accustomed to at Blue Man. And like you said, you do get a little more of that thrill, I think, as an entrepreneur. And we were talking before we started recording that, you know, there's a lot of bad days, there's a lot of challenges as an entrepreneur, but when it's yours and it's something that you're building, it's a lot more, I guess, almost enjoyable than it is if you're having a bad day as an employee, and then it just plain sucks, right? But, you
Yeah.
know, when it's your bad day for something that you're building, it's like, all right, this is worth it. Like, I'm going to solve this problem. I'm going to figure out a way to plow through, and you know, this is just part of the grind. And I think there's a lot of that same kind of dopamine reaction happening there as to what you got accustomed to at Blue Man.
Yeah, you know, and two, what I found with owning the business, and another parallel with being with Blue Man, is understanding the vision, right? So
Sure. Yeah.
when you understand the vision of what you're doing, you know, a good day and a bad day aren't living, you know, in isolation, right? You're
Hmm.
like, okay, but we still know where we're going. So, but if you're just working for someone, you know, and I can only speak from past experience of working for other people. Again, I'll reference before Blue Man. but it's just, it's a bad day, or it's, it sucks or whatever it is, but that's about it. But when you own a business, or you're in a collaborative experience, like an artistic endeavor, okay, this is just a current setback in the short term. How are we going to fix it? Like, you're always moving forward,
Right.
right? It's just, and those failures are really great in a lot of ways, because it allows you to overcome them.
Yeah.
So then you can turn that moment of just sort of, wait a minute, we have to pause. Let's think about this. Maybe this didn't go the way we thought it would, but we're going to solve it, and then we're going to move on. So you can quickly turn a bad day into a really good day. And then you look at that as an experience. So when that comes up again, you know exactly how to get right past it. So you if you understand the vision and you're clear about the vision, and now as the owner, as the entrepreneur with nearly 70 employees, it is something that is critical to make sure that you articulate that vision and how everybody fits into that vision, so that they can have that shared experience too. They can really celebrate the wins and not, harp on the losses as much too. So it provides a better experience for everyone. And I'm huge on experience for my employees and my customers. So having that experience in a collaborative environment and being able to apply it to something like a janitorial company, I really like talking about that, because to me, that means you can apply that collaborative vision, that collaborative environment to anything, to any business, and it will work.
I remember when we first spoke, you were telling me, some of the things that you were able to take from your experience at Blue Man and apply to, your commercial cleaning business to, as you said, create a better experience for your clients, but also for your employees. And, hearing you talk a little bit more about just kind of the team effort and the culture that you had at Blue Man and everything that had to go into putting on, these amazing performances, I'm sure you were able to take a lot of that and apply that to now where you have 70 employees in a business that, I would imagine can be challenging to keep, good employees and keep them motivated. But, it seems like you found a way to do that. And I want to dive deep into some of what you've applied from your learnings at Blue Man and just everything you've learned over your career into your janitorial business. Before we do that, though, I want to get a little better insight into how'd you even get into a janitorial business? Because I know you told me that, once you guys kind of made up your mind to get into business for yourselves, you looked at a lot of different business opportunities. And it sounds like, correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like you kind of had this vision that you wanted to buy an existing business of some sort versus, start something from scratch. So, and for the record, because we talk a lot about franchising on the podcast, your business is not a franchise business. So we're not talking about, you bought into a franchise. You just bought kind of an existing commercial cleaning business from the original owner. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. It's a privately owned business, not a franchise. But yeah, so when my wife and I, it was funny because the timing just seems like, almost cliche, because it was basically like New Year's Eve or something, right? And we were just sitting on the couch. Our son Henry was asleep. So, you find, if you have young children, like once your child goes to bed and you have that 5 minutes with your spouse or partner or whatever it may be.
And you're kind of like whispering and trying not to move so that they don't wake up. You're like, this is awesome, but don't ruin it. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's have this profound life-changing conversation while whispering. Don't wake up the baby. But we really just kind of found ourselves like, I think we kind of talked about a little bit, maybe we do something else. What could we do? And we were like, I think it's time to really do it. So we, long story short, we gave ourselves a year, because it was like, really, it's a matter of, again, going back to what I said earlier, if you want to make a change in these things, and I'm all about, just controlling your own time and destiny as much as you can. Right.
Yep.
So we're like, okay, things are good. Paychecks are great. Job security as of the moment is great. We have a young son, so that's very important. Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
But we were like, you know what? I think, so we don't do like something hasty. Let's give ourselves 1 year. I'm not going to tell anybody. We're not going to say anything, but 1 year from today, we even shook hands on it.
That's awesome. I love
Yeah,
it.
we shook hands on it on that couch we had for years. 1 year from today, we will leave Blue Man, if not before, if something comes up. But this is
Okay.
it. We're
All
making a
right.
pact, and the energy will be, let's look. First, we'll entertain any conversation that comes up. Doesn't matter what it is, even if it's something ridiculous like a janitorial company, right?
Smart.
At the time to us was, ridiculous notion because we've been entertained. My wife studied photography in college. We were both just artists. So we said, okay, well, how are we going to do this? Well, let's just look around the country and think about the cities first. Where do we love to live? Where have we been that we really like? Right.
Okay.
So we just made a list of like places we really have enjoyed or always wanted to go. So there are places like Nashville and Austin, Seattle. We'd already been in New York City, but that was still kind of on the radar.
Sure.
Chicago, obviously, my wife is from the Chicago area. I had 10 amazing years in Chicago after college. And so it wasn't just looking at owning a business, but also maybe a job somewhere. Like I got offered a job at a college in Montana, which we were like, wow, that'd be so amazing. I could learn how to fly fish and all these things. Like I don't know how to fly fish, but that was just the sort of, that was
A
sort
beautiful
of,
country for sure.
Beautiful. Yeah. Bozeman. I mean, we would go on Google and look at, stuff like, wow, that'd be amazing. Right. Because really it was about, let's see if we can provide absolute happiness for ourselves and our child. Right. That was the goal, and be the ones in control of that. So it was probably 3 months into that. So we're looking at like, March, probably. I think it's hard to remember after you've owned a business for a while. It's kind of hard to remember.
It's all a blur. Yeah.
It's all a blur. So my dad calls one day, and just like a line from a movie was like, I know you're not going to want to do this, but you said you're entertaining every conversation. He goes, a friend of mine is selling his janitorial company here in Charleston, in the suburbs of Charleston. It was going to be sort of just passed down in the family, but I guess that they decided to go in a different direction. So now he's going to have to put it on the market. And I think and he was very honest. My dad's an amazing person. He was like, I'm gonna be honest, your mother and I would really love it if, you guys moved back to Charleston, which we never even thought was possible.
That wasn't even on the short list that you put together?
Yeah, because we were still in our minds, entertainment theater was still kind of where we were.
Sure.
And but I said to my wife, Amanda, I said, but we said we'd entertain anything. So I sort of secretly flew to South Carolina from Vegas for 3 days and met with the owner. And we just clicked, we just clicked. And obviously the idea of being home, Charleston's such an amazing place.
Yeah, it is.
That was really a draw. But just meeting with him and kind of talking about that and really started looking at just the business model and what the industry. So things that drew us, the industry is recession proof. It's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
From what I could see in my beautiful ignorance at the time, I could still see that it doesn't look like anybody, these words so overused, but it's true, disrupted the industry, at least in the small business aspect of it in a long time.
For sure.
And coming from a large technical sort of artistic background, I'm like, oh man, there's so many things we could do here to bring it sort of in the 21st century. So by the end of the 3-day visit, I was like, oh my gosh, I think we should do this, and the asking price was good because it was going to be, sort of handed down to the family. Now it's on the open market. So, it was advantageous for us to sort of pounce on it because of,
it was a good deal. He didn't have, an outrageous asking price that was not within the realm of reason.
Yeah. And with the very limited money we had saved for many years, but with the very limited money of, liquid money that we had at the time, it could work. Right.
Yeah.
So, he and I had this amazing conversation in his backyard overlooking this river he lives on. And it was just really sort of picturesque. And I just really trusted him. And I really knew that he would be a good resource to help me in the first couple months, whatever it was. And even
no doubt.
That up. So I fly back to Vegas and I said, she's like, so, what do you think?
Yeah.
It's kind of giggling. And I was like, I think we're going to buy a janitorial company in South Carolina. And she's like, are you serious? So then
do you think she was expecting you to come back and be like, nah? not for us.
100%,
Yeah.
100%. But I could say, so I could spend hours talking about my amazing wife. She's just, I'm incredibly lucky, but, she's always like, well, let's talk about it. Let's, we always have this joke, let's look at the numbers. Right.
Yeah.
So she was like, tell me why. And I just went through it, and she just starts giggling too. She's like, I think you're right. I think we should.
She's like, oh my God, we're going to start cleaning.
We're going to do what? We don't know anything at this point. Right. And like everybody else, I'm like, well, I've just been doing the show on the Vegas Strip, and this can't be that hard. Right. Turns out it's incredibly difficult industry. It's incredibly competitive. You're completely driven by labor, which has its own challenges, so we, shocked everyone that we worked with. And my parents freaked out. I thought, they were just going to completely pass out. And we told them that we were coming home with their grandson.
Oh yeah. I know they were on cloud 9.
Oh, I freaked out. But, that transition just to us made sense, but we were also willing at the time to jump off a cliff. We were like, it's time let's do it. This is our life. We're both time to us is so important. We know it's a finite thing. One day it's going to end. And we were very much like, you know what? This is our life. As much as we can control our destiny, we are. So let's do it. Let's just create a new experience for ourselves.
Man, I love this story for several different reasons. I mean, first of all, I just love, the mindset that you and your wife had. Time is very finite, right? And life is so short. And why spend life not doing something that you really enjoy doing? So I love that. I love kind of the mindset that you said you had of just do it. I've had a mantra for years, which is drop in, which is just kind of the same concept as just do it. Has kind of become a theme of the podcast. I'm not like going to Vegas and putting everything on black, but I do my due diligence. And then, when I feel good enough about it and feel like I understand it, there's also a lot of like the kind of gut, decision making that I think you have to get comfortable with, in entrepreneurship, or really just doing anything big in your life that's going to, set you up to change your life in a positive way. You got to look at it from a logical standpoint, but that's only, I'd say, even less than 50% of the decision. Usually it's a lot more emotional, and you just got to learn to trust your gut and as I say, drop in. So I love that. How did you guys kind of have the foresight though to sit down and say, number one, we're giving ourselves a definitive timeline? Because I mean, I'm currently working with some people that have literally been kind of kicking this can of the idea of getting into business for themselves down the road for years, like 4, 5, 6 years. And it's like an idea they love talking about, but they haven't given themselves any definitive timelines. And they're more just talking about it than anything. So that's the first part of the question. Where did the kind of foresight to set a timeline for yourselves come from? And also, where did you kind of, I guess, have the confidence or just the willingness to really be open-minded and say, we're going to look at anything that pops up as an opportunity? Because that's very counterintuitive to most people looking to get into business for themselves. That's something I usually have to coach the people that I work with on, is to say, hey, you really need to focus on what your role as the owner would be in a business and the lifestyle it could create for you, not so much what the business actually does. And that's a hard concept for a lot of people to wrap their head around. It sounds like you guys just kind of naturally understood this. So I'm curious, you may have not even really thought much about it, but where do you think some of that foresight came from?
Yeah, I hadn't really thought about that too deeply. So I'll just kind of, obviously it's always good to just answer honestly what first comes to mind. First, to your point about like deadlines. So I'm just going to think about my just life experience, right? Before theater, my entire life was dominated by soccer. I was a competitive soccer player my entire life.
Okay.
Had a lot of success with that. So, you only have a certain amount of time in a game to score so many goals, right? There's a finite time there. Then I also went I'm very fortunate that I went to a very good high school, a very good college. You have deadlines there too.
Sure.
You are held accountable. So I think you learn in theater too. There's deadlines. We only have so much time to write. We only have so much time to rehearse.
Yeah. The show starts at a certain time, so you got to be ready.
Opening nights, Friday at 8. So
Yeah,
better be ready. So I think what you're learning through those examples, then just as far as that, it's all about accountability, right? Like that's one thing you learn as an adult. Like, hey, nobody, and actually I started learning this in college, which I really loved about college was that I was given the freedom to hold myself accountable or not. Nobody's there to hold my hand. I don't show up to class. Parents aren't going to yell at me. They're not here to see.
Yeah.
It's like, show up or not, So again, to you, like drop in or whatever, it's like, you're going to show up or not. So, I think the part about time is let's hold ourselves accountable. Right. Yeah. And then you can also measure where you are. And this also goes into now helping as a business. Where are we now? Where are we going? Where are we on that chain? Because business, obviously it's not linear. We're going, it's mountains, peaks, valleys, the whole thing. It's crazy. Roller coaster, all these different ways of putting it. So then I would say, so moving to your other question about just sort of the jumping in part. I mean, you already got to look at my history of like just going in to try to be an actor, right? You're already crazy because the odds are against you, right?
Yeah,
so
I guess so.
Just, that's what they always talk about, like entrepreneur is a certain type of person, right? And I say that respectfully because it's not just, it sounds like you're almost like in this exclusive club, but you have to be a certain sort of crazy, or you just, that's just what you do, and that was one of the reasons why I was comfortable leaving the acting behind, right? Is I didn't have any sort of grand success, but I did, have a lot of time on stage in smaller theaters, had some roles in some independent movies, did some commercial stuff that never made air. And you'd already heard people say, like, if you're going to do this, you got to really feel that there's nothing else you want to do, right? Because it is tough.
Yeah.
And I really found myself, and I'll just give you one example, like the last commercial shoot I did, I was still pursuing acting. Even when we moved to Vegas, I got an agent in Vegas and I got this commercial and it was like just me on camera, promoting this phone or something. And I found myself really not having a good time. And I did a good job. The thing went well, but I was like, you know what? This should be one of those moments where I'm really excited, but I'm not. I was obviously grateful for the opportunity and the money was great and all that.
Sure.
But I was like, you know what? This is not where I want to be. Like everybody listening can probably give an example of that room you're in that you don't want to be in, or that position you're in. You're like, yeah, I should on paper want to be here, but I don't want to be here.
Yeah.
I don't want to be hanging out with these people, or why am I at this party or whatever it is?
Yep.
So really understanding where you are in the moment and where you want to go, and being okay with that change, right? Because a lot of people are not comfortable with change, right? Maybe that's just not their life. But for us, it was a matter of, you know what? I'm totally fine with change. I'm totally fine with going after it. And again, experience leading up to that, we had already had some wins where we had some change that was positive. So that gives you the confidence.
Definitely.
But I've always been one to be like, you know what? I don't want to do this. I'm going over here. Like when I stopped playing soccer, when I fell out of love with playing the game, I still love the game. I love just the artistry of the game. I love the chess of the game. But when I fell out of love with playing it, I was comfortable in that decision. And the same thing happened with being an actor. And then the same thing happened with leaving and being a person who works for Blue Man. Because, hey, what do you do for a living? Oh, I work for Blue Man Group. Oh, that's really exciting.
Yeah, right.
Right. I mean, that's exactly what would happen. But when I fell out of love with maybe the story of working there, and over time with like Blue Man specifically, it was always about the people. It wasn't about the title of the show, or it wasn't about being like to have this really cool story. We were surrounded by amazingly talented, wonderful people of from all over the world, you know, and still to this day, my best, not all of them, because I have friends from all walks of my entire life history, but some of my closest, dearest friends are from there. And
Yep.
it's just such a wonderful experience to continue to share and be nostalgic about. So when it was time to leave, we were comfortable with that and knew that we weren't really leaving. Our community would still be there, but we were
Sure.
just going to do our own thing, right?
Starting the next chapter.
The next chapter. And especially when we have a child, we wanted to grow as a family. We needed a new, not a new, but just the next thing was really enticing.
I mean, it sounds like you've just, gotten very comfortable being self-aware, kind of doing some internal reflecting. And when you get to the point of, maybe the excitement's not there for one venture like it was in the past, then you're not trying to force it. You're comfortable moving on to the next. And I think that's a great quality, because I think too many people do try to force it, right? Like you said, well, on paper, this is what I'm supposed to be doing, or I've already spent so many years of my life working towards this, why would I give up on it now? Or not even give up, but why would I move on to something else now? So it sounds like you've just gotten comfortable, not trying to force it, really just kind of, almost just letting life take you where it feels right, I guess.
Yeah. And two, I'll say this, like I have my entire life, I don't like being on the sidelines.
Yeah.
I want to drive the car. I want to ride the bike. I want to ride the motorcycle. Like and I like to be in the room where decisions are being made.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I even, and I also understand you have to earn that spot to be in that room. And then you have to earn that spot to be at the seat of the table. Right. It's not a status thing. It's not a, popularity thing. I really like learning from people who are really doing the work and making a difference, and then being a part of that process. I love that process, and I like sharing that process. So, when my influence somewhere obviously gets capped and you work for somebody else, it will be capped, right? Like you can only do so much, but there was so much more for me to do that my brain wanted to learn, that I wasn't ready to stop. Like, okay, I know this is as far as I can go. And I went way farther than I thought I ever would with such an amazing company.
Yeah.
But now there's no turning back, right? Now I want more. It's not about money or prestige or whatever. I want to be part of that next conversation. I want to continue learning. And the only way I felt at that time was, well, then you really want to be in that next room, you got to create that room. And so that's
I like that.
Did. If there's no more seats and there's no more seats at this table and there'll never be another seat at this table, well, then you need to go make a new table and then do it so well that you can then create more chairs at that table to share it. And that's really how we looked at it. And
I like that a lot.
We haven't completely screwed it up, knock on wood.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about that, right? So you guys get into the commercial cleaning business. I think you told me, so you've owned the business now for a little over 6 years. Is that right?
September was 6 years. Yeah.
Awesome. Congratulations on that. I mean, that alone is a huge achievement. I mean, you kind of joke and say we haven't screwed it up yet, but I mean, we all kind of know the statistics. Like most businesses don't make it through their first year, and it's even, the numbers go way down for 5 years. So, I mean, in all seriousness, congratulations on that. But, talk to me a little bit about kind of what you and your wife's experience was taking over an existing business, because that's a lot different than, like starting your own thing from scratch, or, even like buying into a franchise where you're not reinventing the wheel. You've got systems and processes, but you're not taking over, an existing business that's been operating in that specific area. And I think there's a lot of pros and cons that come with something like that. So, I mean, share a little bit of your experience in terms of, what were the pros, but also what were some of the cons and the challenges that, you had to figure out taking over this existing business. And it sounds to me like it was already a pretty well established, operation. I think you've certainly seemed to have grown it, but I mean, it's no small task, and it definitely, it's a steep learning curve, when you're kind of stepping in as the owner, and like, business doesn't stop while you're figuring it out and getting your legs under you. Right. So tell us a little bit about how that was for you.
Yeah. So it was an existing business at around 25 years. And the original founder was still the one running it. Right.
Okay.
So it was very much like a lot of family run businesses where everything was running through the owner, right? So a lot of people were waiting on the owner to make a decision and all that. And I have nothing but absolute gratitude and praise and respect for the former owner of this company. I cannot even begin to tell you how gracious and how wonderful he and his family have been to us.
That's awesome to hear.
Just a real, and I tell you, if it wasn't so many different reasons, but because of who he is and how wonderful, and so, just a classy, honorable Southern gentleman is Mr. Johnson.
Well, I mean, it sounds like that was a big part of what got
Huge.
you comfortable moving
Huge.
forward with that business, was just kind of the trust. You said you guys really clicked, and you had a lot of respect for him. And to me, that makes perfect sense. I mean, even if the business itself was, a great business, if you didn't have that kind of connection with the previous owner, might have been harder to get comfortable moving forward with it.
Oh yeah. And I would have failed. I'll just say it right. I mean, flat out, because I really, you can be as smart as you want and all these different things and ready to grind it out and all that kind of stuff, but you're going to need help because you just don't have any context. You don't know what's going on. So again, anytime I talk about Myron Johnson, everybody should know what an amazing man this man is. So the pros of buying an existing business are that you have current customers, right?
Yep.
The game is already being played, right?
Yeah.
You have cash flow and all these things. So you are able to, what I did, and I learned this from taking over different cities, like keeping a Blue Man, but it was right what I did right before this. So like when I went from Chicago to Las Vegas to New York and then back to Las Vegas is how the timeline went. You work for corporate America, you're basically taking somebody else's job. So you're stepping into a role that's already existing, right?
Yeah.
So I knew how to do that. And so what I knew going in was I need, especially going into an industry I don't know anything about, right? I need to learn and watch as much as I can. Don't go in being like, why do you do that? That's dumb. Let's change that. Don't do anything. Go. So what I did is I sat back for 6 months and I just watched and I asked him a zillion questions because he would, part of the deal was he would be accessible to me for a certain amount of time.
Yep.
So I would sit back in the office and watch and listen to all the conversations, the phone calls and all this kind of stuff. And then at night I would go out and I would clean all the buildings with the teams. I would go start at one account, meet that team, work with them, ask them as many questions as I could, learn that account. When I got a handle on that, then I'd move on to the next. And on the weekends, I would go out with the floor crews and I would say, hey, I would say to who's still my head of floors, who's an amazing person, I would say, I'm going to work on your crew for you. You tell me what to do. Don't let me screw up the job because I don't know what I'm doing.
Right.
So I was like, I'm in. I'm going to be immersed in this business.
I love that.
Everything about the business I can. So, and then at night, after I'd get home, sometimes for dinner, most times not, my goal was to always try to be home for bedtime for my son, right?
Yep.
That was a big part of it. And then I would go right back to work on the computer. So that goes into the cons. Like the cons now, seeing all the ways to where we need to change or to fix. Not fix is in a bad way, but just like make it my own, right?
Yeah, sure.
Your business needs to reflect you and things that you understand.
I think that's a big part of it, right? I mean, you're inheriting a team of people, you're inheriting a culture that's been created. And even though, it sounds like you inherited great teams, great cultures, to your point, you do have to kind of make it your own. And that's a challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. So what and I say all this respectfully, I come from a very specific way of thinking, organizing, all that. When you work on the backstage on a technical show or a live Vegas show, your systems and processes and how you organize and your standardization has to be on point all the time because it could be extremely dangerous, right?
Yeah.
And when you have a show that operates in multiple cities, in North America and across the world with tours, You need to be able to take people from each city or a performer or a crew member and plug them into another city, say they need that. So I came in and immediately was like, okay, first of all, we have to delegate more. It can't just come from me because I can't be everywhere all the time, and that's not efficient. And we need to standardize this thing across the board, right? Because if you go back to like theater, which is recurring every day, the same thing, it's exactly like janitorial. You're doing exactly the same thing every day. There's a lot of advantages to that because now you can kind of tell the future. If you have a problem that's happening and it's recurring, well, now you know what's going to happen tomorrow, so you can get ahead of it and fix it.
That's right.
Right. So what I saw and what I talked to the former owner about, we were very open about, and he also agreed, was that somebody with my background really would be beneficial because I can see where technology and efficiencies and standardizations, optimization, augmented workflows, all these different things will really sync up. Because when he found out that when my dad, this is just kind of a funny story because, and we laugh about this, like when my dad told him about me wanting to buy the business, he originally thought it was my brother. My brother is older. He's a very successful person who works in the grocery business, and he's just very highly successful person. And he's like, oh, your son that works in the grocery business. He's like, no. My youngest son who works in theater. And he's like,
he's like, wait, what?
I don't know if
Are you
that's
sure?
gonna work. Yeah, I don't know if that's going to work. But it turns out when we met, he was like, oh, okay. I was talking about how processes work and standardization and all these different things. So once I kind of got the lay of the land of what was going on and how things were working, where the deficiencies were, I like to speak positively, where the opportunities were.
Sure.
Then I could start acting on them because now I have been in the business long enough to have the experience of what's going on, see what could actually work, see what pieces of equipment would make sense for our teams. Yes, the investment up front is more, but play the long game, play the retention game that we like to do. And it's recurring. So if you're going to do this job every single day, I need to get you the proper equipment that matches that type of workflow.
That's right.
So basically I just sort of took all the lessons I had learned and applied them to this. Now you got to learn all kinds of things. I got to learn how to sell a janitorial contract, which of course I never had done before. So I'm studying day and night. So my day would consist of getting up, saying good morning to my son and wife. And then in the first couple of months, my wife got pregnant with our second son. So let's just go full crazy.
Yeah. Let's just get comfortable with chaos. Right.
And we always laugh about that. Like, calm is ridiculous to us. Why would we stay calm? Let's just be chaotic. So anyway, I would just learn as much as I can about what I saw as a con to really understand if it was a con. And a lot of times, maybe it's a little tweak will turn that into an advantage. Yeah. So really looking at how to optimize what the business was, right? Like everybody thinks it's just the business is just the title of the business. We're a janitorial company. So much more. There's so much that goes into that. So really finding out what we were good at, what I was comfortable with, and how can we provide the best possible service to our customers. And one of my things I like to really harp on with people is you have to have just an amazing experience for your employees as well as your customers, right? If your employees aren't happy, your customers will never be happy. And we are full on service industry, right? We are a full on service business. So I need to make sure that I understand and take care of my employees. They understand the vision and the culture, so that we can deliver what I promised to our customers. And so far, we have done very, very well. We're very proud of that fact. And that will never change. It is all about the quality because, when you look at service industries, like what sets them apart, right? And that is going to be quality of service, right?
Yep.
Right. So a lot of times, especially in janitorial, what I found is, and people would even say this to me when I was going out on bids, it's like, you're all the same. How cheap is it?
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's not a way to work. Yep. I'm a firm believer in like, have the price equal the value that you're getting rather than the price reflecting what you're not getting. Right. So I was like, hey, the only way for us to truly stand out that matches me, like I'm a total neat freak. I like very nice things. I like to take care of my things. Like I'm very proud of That's probably from all those years of struggling as an actor and really respecting what you've earned.
Sure.
Like I wanted to match me. And I was like, where we really need to stand out is we need to be the janitorial team that, yeah, we're going to be a little bit more expensive because it does cost more money to, for the labor and the equipment and everything else. But we're going to be the team that does the work and we do it well. So it's a little bit harder to sell those contracts because they're a little bit more expensive. But once people go with us, we don't lose them. Like our
I think
rate,
I think you shared with me
100%.
100% retention rate since you've owned the business.
In the last 4 years, there was a couple that we lost in the first 2. But in the last 4 years, we haven't lost one customer.
That's impressive. But I mean, in talking with you, it's very clear to me, that you really believe everything that you're talking about, which is, especially in a service business like this, the way you differentiate yourself is you provide an amazing experience for your clients. And a big part of being able to provide such a good experience for your clients is making sure your team members are having a good experience so that they're, happy, they're motivated, they feel like, they're a part of this bigger, vision. They understand what their role is in helping this bigger vision become a reality. And it sounds like you've done an amazing job implementing this. And, I just want to circle back to something that you said earlier, which is, right after you guys bought the business, you just kind of sat back and watched. I think you said for 6 months. And
Yeah.
that's impressive. I mean, I think that's the right approach. And I think I imagine that was hard because I put myself in the shoes and I'm going to, I'm kind of like take action. Like I would have come in and like a bull in a china shop probably and just started like, changing things up and just probably doing all types of dumb things without really understanding the implications. And so I think that, a lot of credit to you, right, for taking that approach and kind of having the foresight to say, hey, look, I don't really know much of anything about this particular business at this point. So the first thing I need to do is get educated and figure out how it works. What do we actually have in place? And then start identifying opportunities to, shore up processes and really get this thing dialed in. But then, you did your kind of due diligence on that piece, and then you did start taking action. Because I've seen a lot of people acquire existing businesses, and rarely do they do a very good job of making positive change. One of two things normally happens. They come in, like I said, I probably would have like a bull in a china shop, and they just start wrecking things, lose the respect of the employees that they inherit, lose some clients, whatever. Or they come in and they just leave it and they don't do anything. And so, hopefully what they bought was a pretty good business because it's probably not going to get any better, with them not doing anything. So it sounds like you kind of walked a pretty thin line of waiting and observing until you had a really clear understanding of where the business was and what you could implement to improve it and build it beyond where it was. And then you actually started taking action. And, I'd love if you could spend just a couple minutes giving us, some examples of some of the things that you've done to, shore up processes, create a better work environment for your team, and ultimately provide a better experience for your clients. Because I know you gave me some examples when we first talked and kind of light bulbs were going off for me. I was like, oh yeah, that's brilliant. And it seems like a small change in some of those examples you gave me, but huge impact and huge implications once implemented.
Yeah. So, where do I start? Right. Yeah. When you sit back for a while and start to become a student of what you're seeing, you start to see, I'll start here in the warehouse. I was present every day, right? I was everywhere all the time, not to be looking over somebody's shoulder to be like, you can do it better. I would kind of be like, hey, what would make, and I still ask this question, what would make your job easier? Right? Like, not like, hey, how can you go faster and make me more money? It was like, you're doing this every day. And I started doing the work with them too, like I was saying, right? So I would be like, man, this is kind of why do we do it like this? I could go so much faster if X, Y, Z. So you start to come up with your list of things, and then you just start asking. in owners who don't talk to their employees every day, what are you doing, man? They're the ones that are doing it every day. They're the experts. So talk to them. So one thing was finding out, okay, here I am now, I'm 6 months in. I haven't seen that piece of equipment make me any money. Why is that here? And it's old, whatever. So I kind of, all of a sudden, when I did start making moves, they were like, we're getting rid of all this stuff that we don't need. They're like, what are you doing? You're getting rid of, don't you need, you might need that. I'm like, that hasn't been moved in 6 months. If it's sitting here and it's taking up space, then not only is it not making me money, at some point it's going to be losing me money.
Sure.
So I just started gutting things, right? I just went through and was like, I know and if I came in the first week, I would have done something stupid and got rid of something we needed.
Right. Yeah,
but
exactly.
6 months, I'm like, okay, that can go. Now is ready. And it's an exciting time. Right now I'm going to go. Now, obviously there's some things, that maybe wasn't the best decision, or maybe whatever, but I was now ready to act. Right. And now everybody, and it's really important too, that your employees now, they know you now, they've seen you, they've talked to you, they trust you. So when you start making change now, there's a lot less apprehension. And again, it all goes back to trust, right?
100%.
So I was like, okay, going back to the standardization, all these buildings where it makes sense, obviously scope, size of building, scope of work, all these things, but for the most part, it's pretty much the same. You might need multiples of certain pieces of equipment, whatever. Mm-hmm. So I was like, okay, there's no reason why 99% of this can't be exactly the same. And a lot of the moves we made were informed by employees. Hey, when I worked at this other company, we did this. Why don't we do that? And I'd be like, that's a great idea. Tell me more about that.
Sure.
How does that help you? So again, I would just ask everyone questions. Instead of telling them what to do, I would ask them what they think I should do.
Yep.
Okay? So move forward a little. And also I was like, okay, as you make changes and you see how it affects things positively, well, then what's the next step? Okay, let's just keep going. Like, you're never going to stop innovating. I don't care what you're doing. If you do, you're dead. So, you should always be looking at your processes, how you can make them better. So with the equipment and the chemicals and things like that, like the very basic things, even down to the microfiber towels you use, how long is it taking us to launder those? Why don't we give you more so we don't have to pick them up so many times per week or whatever it is? So you just start looking at operational efficiencies. Again, that goes back to running technical departments, things like that. Like, it's all about efficiencies.
I think you gave me an example earlier about switching to cordless vacuum cleaners and how much time that saved in big office buildings where you're not having to weave the cord through cubicles. And I was telling you, I was like, that actually makes a lot of sense. We just got a cordless vacuum and I'm like happy to vacuum the house now. I used to dread it because you have to move the cord 5 times.
It goes right back to experience, right? So yes, that's where I was going with the equipment, right? So once you kind of get a standardization everywhere, it's okay. Now you go into the buildings, because here in the janitorial world, in any service, it's all labor hours and production rates, right? So your margins are very small. Mm-hmm. So you basically have to learn, it goes back to my whole appreciation of time. How can I be the most efficient and get the most done in this finite bit of time, right? Because the janitorial contract is based on labor hours per night, times 4.3 times whatever. So
while still doing a good job, and not cutting corners.
And that's the thing. I am a firm believer in, like, I'm not trying to rush these guys through, because for me, it's all about quality, right? When I walk into a building, I want the customer happy, not looking for me, right? So, right? Because there's only 2 ways about it.
Sure.
So I started just looking at the cost and how well these lithium-ion battery vacuums work. Huge investment as opposed to like $150 vacuum or $700 vacuum.
Yeah.
Well,
okay.
So if we can look, and then I'll get into more how we have robotics as well now. But okay, yes, it's a bigger investment. But what I found vacuuming large buildings, let's just go with a corded vacuum. If everybody listening, they're like, oh my God, we're talking about vacuums now, but just hear me out. Hear me out for a second, right? Because you do it now in your house and now you enjoy vacuuming.
Yeah.
So I would find, based on doing the work with them, that, okay, we're doing a large place. You're going into an office and now you're in a cubicle or whatever. Okay, I got to stop again to unplug the cord, move it on. Or now we're going again and okay, now it's stuck under the cubicle corner Now I'm stuck. Now I can only go 15 feet when I got a 50-foot cord.
Yeah.
Now I got to go plug it again. Now I go to the wall, the outlet in the wall, and the outlet doesn't work. Right now I got to get under someone's desk into a surge protector or something, which you shouldn't be doing, and you're basically now, instead of vacuum, now I'm searching for power. Okay.
Right.
That's a disaster. So think about it as somebody who's doing that every night on a recurring basis.
It's such a headache.
It's a headache, and they're humans. You do that for 20 minutes when you still have an hour left of vacuuming. Guess what people are going to do? I'll get the rest of that tomorrow. I'm exhausted.
Right. Yeah. They're going to start cutting corners.
They're going to cut corners. So I'm like, we're going to invest in these vacuums. So I got one, did the place, and people were like, oh my, employees were like, oh my God. Because at the end of the day, again, your employees want to do a good job. People like to do a good job.
Yes.
Right. So it's just how you view, humanity in a lot of ways when you own a business too. But so I found that, oh my God, proper tools for the job, right? Have the tool match the job. So being very realistic about what you're asking your employees to do day in and day out, right? So again, that goes back to the first couple months, learning, listening, appreciating, respecting. So we just started really looking at process too. Hey, if you start, and this goes into really nerding out about your workflow, but we learned this backstage in theater. You can't be sprinting in the dark when you have moving pieces in the back, right? You have to find the most efficient path where everybody's on the same page, where you're going fast while walking slowly, right? Just because efficiency allows you that.
Yep.
So I was like, we apply it here. If you're doing it every day, and you got to pick up all these trash cans and bend over, and then you got to dust this. Let's just find the proper sequence to make it the most effective.
Yeah.
So we looked at that. So workflow, proper tools, equal efficiency, which allows your employees to do the work without, now you got less injuries, you got less call outs, just attrition, all these different things.
There's a domino effect of positive things.
So really, just like we talked about earlier, taking care of the employees, because ultimately they're the ones taking care of the customer.
100%.
Right? They're on the front lines. So if you're my cleaner or my supervisor in a building, I take care of you. I have led you to success to create that relationship with that customer, because they see you every day or every night. They know you, right? So if I give you all the tools you need to be successful, then everyone wins. It's really, I think, a really simple formula. There's so many parts of business that are difficult, yes, but just your approach and your vision and not looking past your employee, because they are really your only true asset, right?
When I love what you said about, asking your employees, hey, what should I be doing? What could I do to make your life easier, instead of coming in and just, giving them orders or changing things arbitrarily. I mean, you really, and we already talked about it, you took the time to listen and learn, but you asked for their feedback. And that, I'm sure, not only gave them incredible respect for you, but it also gave them more ownership over their position, right? Because you're valuing their input, you're valuing their expertise, right? You're acknowledging, hey, you know more about how to effectively, clean this building than I do. So what can I do to put you in a better position to be successful and enjoy, doing your job? And I think that's universal, right? I mean, that'll translate to any business where you have employees, productions like Blue Man, I mean, sports teams, with coach, I mean, that's pretty much universal, yet so few people in leadership positions actually take that approach, I feel like.
Yeah, I think a lot of times people in leadership positions forget that their job is working for everyone else.
Yeah.
Right. Like,
yeah.
Yeah. And a big, somebody said to me, isn't it nice when you're busy, you don't have a boss? I'm like, you kidding me? I have like 70 bosses.
Yeah. Right.
And then I have my 50,
the clients
bosses. Yeah. I work for everyone.
Yeah.
Right. Which I really enjoy, because then I get to meet everyone and talk to them and hear their story. And I've become great friends with a lot of customers. And,
that's awesome.
Yeah. And I love, and one thing that's been really difficult at coronavirus going on is that I don't get to just walk into buildings right now and
Pop
see
in.
my
Yeah.
teams, and I love that. I love going in and asking about their families or what they need. And I always say the same thing. First of all, how are you? And then check in on maybe a family member I already know had something going on or whatever. Check in on that, make sure that's okay. And then say, okay, what do you need? And now it's been 6 years. I've had a really, we talk about our retention rate with our customers, which is really, we're so incredibly proud of. But that's also because our retention rate with our employees. We still have some that come and go right from the beginning. Usually if somebody's been with me about a month or two, they're going to stay and it's going to be great. But so I know these people, I know them, and I can come in and sit and chat. And because I've been able to sort of delegate and have a really good operational strategy, is I now have the time to go and, like, if I were to come visit you at a building, I'd sit and talk to you as long as we wanted to. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then if you're behind in your work, then I'll help you clean it up because I want to have that conversation. I really love that conversation. And one thing that was really important to me, because somebody, I can't remember exactly what happened, but somebody one time, one of our company meetings, saying something about, we're just janitors, who cares? And I was like, that really bothered me. And so I always talk to my employees about their value of what we do. And now we're really, because of coronavirus, really in the spotlight, and people are, out there going, oh, essential workers is so important.
Yeah.
But I've always been like, do you know what we're doing for people? Like, we don't do a lot of retail. I have like one or two just because it's kind of an offshoot of a larger thing. But I'd say we're helping by us cleaning for, obviously we clean for health first, but for the image and appearance, we are helping this company sell their products, right? We are a part of this team. We are not just some afterthought. We are an important piece of what's happening here. And that's a really tough thing for people to have this job or whatever, where they don't really feel that anybody respects them or there's any value of what they do. And I really nipped that in the bud early. I was like, listen, what we do is incredibly important. Do I feel that all of you should make more money? Absolutely. And I'll even talk to them about the market. I'll say, here's what's going on. I can't pay you what I feel the worth is of what we're doing because the market, the customer, the going rate or whatever doesn't allow for it. And that's a big thing that I'm hoping comes out of coronavirus, is that with that spotlight on the industry of going, hey, we need to pay these people more money.
This
right?
is important.
Yeah, it's very important because a lot of times people think like, oh, you're the owner, so you keep all the money.
If only that's how it really worked.
I wish. But, so I've even broken out and just talked about margins and shown what people, how much I made off this, or for those multiple months where I didn't pay myself anything because it was more important to reinvest in the equipment for them. Because, it's a long-term game. You're building this thing to last. And I have to remember that all these people that work for me, they're under my care, right? They are looking to me to make money on a consistent basis to pay for their families as well. And it goes back to me and how I value time. I am really hardcore about my time. And I really think the only way I can ask you to respect my time in that manner is for me to do the same for you. Yeah. So when I talk to my employees and they're in our buildings or at our meetings or whatever they're doing, I have to respect that their spouse or their partner or their families or grandparent or whatever, there are people waiting on them. Mm-hmm. I have to honor their time with me because that's time away from their family. So it just goes back to the humanity aspect of owning a business and really, truly appreciating and respecting your employees.
Well, and I think not letting your ego get in the way.
Yeah,
I think that's a struggle with a lot of business owners and leaders is, this kind of sense of, well, I'm up here and everyone else is down here, and there's an ego at play. And, I think it's clear to me that, you have zero ego that gets in the way. And I mean, it seems to me like you have just built a tremendous culture within your organization. And, I love what you talked about in terms of, helping your team understand the importance and the value of what they do and helping them see, like, you're not just a janitor, you are actually actively helping these other businesses conduct their business, which is impacting the livelihood of others. I mean, there's just this whole kind of, chain effect happening. And I think it's great that you've, really helped them see that, because I think that goes a long way. And I have no doubt that that directly ties into the strong retention rates that you have with your team in an industry that I would imagine has probably some of the lower retention rates across the board
Oh
within
yeah.
businesses.
Yeah, it's
Um,
pretty crazy. The average is, I think the average for retaining employees is somewhere like 300% is like the turnover rate, which is
yeah,
unbelievable. And then this customer retention, it's like 100%. It's crazy. Like lose all your customers every year. It's crazy. There's so much waste.
yeah.
It's so much cheaper to keep a customer than to lose them and try to onboard a new one. Like it's just a ridiculous game to play that way. I don't know why anyone would do that.
Yeah, I mean it's a lot of work up front to figure out, where do we really have the opportunity to dial this thing in, and then make the implementations. And again, credit to you, you did the hard work up front. And I love what you mentioned too earlier, where now you've got great processes in place, you do a good job of delegating. So now you're really the face of the business. And that's, to me, not all businesses are the same. Not all businesses are as scalable as others, but, for most businesses, the long-term goal of the owner should be to spend the vast majority of their time working on the business, not in the business. And it sounds like you're at that point now. But what I love about the story you've told today is that you really dove in and worked in the business to put yourself in a better position to then work on the business. And that's where, you really start growing. And as you put it, building something that's going to last a very, very long time. Matt, this has been awesome, man. I could literally sit here and talk to you all day, but I do respect your time and know you have a lot going on. There's just one other kind of thing I'd like to have you speak to, even if it's just briefly. We've talked a lot today about what you've learned from your career in theater and producing amazing shows like Blue Man, and how you've kind of applied some of that to entrepreneurship. Quickly, what are some of the biggest things that you've learned since becoming a business owner? And I know, we talked a little bit offline about EO. You're a member of Entrepreneurs Organization, and how you've kind of been surrounded with some amazing like-minded people. So maybe just take a couple minutes and share with us some of the biggest things that you've learned since becoming, an entrepreneur.
Yeah. So one thing, and we spoke on this a little bit offline, you're saying is, I don't think I would have never imagined it could be so lonely,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you can't turn it off, and you do get addicted to working, and you don't have a lot of people you can talk to that understand that.
Yeah.
Just have context of what it's like to own a business. Um, and I'm glad you brought up EO, because that was one thing that I found about a year ago, where an EO is an entrepreneurs organization. It's a global organization with roughly 14,000 members worldwide. But I found that, and one of the best lessons I've learned is there are so many other business owners, entrepreneurs that want to talk to you, that are willing to talk to you. And the reason is because they need to for themselves as well. So there's a
Yeah.
whole community of these, just amazing people that helps you realize that business is personal. It is personal. I hate it's just business. It's just business. That's ridiculous. These are people, but even if you have a business that doesn't, have a lot of employees or whatever, but it is personal. This is your life, right? And you have things outside your business, a family or other interests or whatever it is. So one thing that I've learned that's been so amazing and honestly life-changing is just the community out there that's kind of been waiting for me. I
Yeah.
didn't even know it,
Yeah.
and that is, and a lot of people I've heard, well, I don't have time for another thing. I'm so busy. I'm like, let me tell you something. If you're not in a peer group, if you're an entrepreneur and you're not in a peer group, or in a mastermind or in therapy or whatever it is.
Yeah, whatever you want to call it, right?
You need to find your tribe. You need to find that, because it will open your eyes to so many new doors, so many new possibilities. That thing that's been plaguing you, maybe you've had this problem that's been driving you crazy for months, years, whatever it is. It honestly, you might get an experience share from somebody that solves that problem in a minute.
I know.
Don't be afraid to ask for help. Don't ever be afraid to ask for help. And if you find yourself thinking that it's embarrassing to say what you don't know something or you don't understand something, get over it real quick, right?
Yeah.
Look it up, find somebody to ask, if anything you can do to talk to that person or that book you've been meaning to read, you need to get on it today. It's okay not to know everything. Find your community, because you need to talk about your business with people that understand and have a context for what you might be presenting as an issue.
Like-minded people, right? I mean, it's the old Jim Rohn saying, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with, right? So surround yourself with like-minded. It could be completely different businesses, right? But
for sure. Yeah.
It's other like-minded people working towards similar goals, challenging themselves in the same type of ways. And to your point from earlier, it is lonely as an entrepreneur, right? So if nothing else, it's just a good reminder that you're not the only one out there, trying to build a business and running into the challenges and the frustrations that come with that. There's a lot of other people out there going through that same grind day in and day out. And yeah, I mean, there's just something really, I think, healthy and refreshing about talking to other people that are going through the same types of, things that you are, as an entrepreneur. And, I've heard great things about EO, John Ostenson, who introduced us. And I mean, I can even tell just from the way that, you and I kind of clicked and have had some amazing conversations since John introduced us. I mean, if that's the type of people that are, in EO, I'm sold, right? I mean, there's so much value in just meeting new people, learning from their experiences, their perspectives. And couldn't agree with you more. Being in some sort of a peer group or a mastermind, surrounding yourself with like-minded people, it's huge. You got to build that tribe. And it's not to say that you don't hang out with people that are not, entrepreneurs or kind of chasing the same type of dreams that you are, but you got to have that circle as well. I think it's imperative.
Yeah, I mean, you basically get a board of directors to help you work through things, right?
Yeah.
So I can't speak highly enough of EO and some other peer groups I'm in that are more industry specific, and a mastermind that I'm in that's industry specific and an EO thing.
Yeah.
But I think that's where I think a lot of entrepreneurs, especially, I can't say especially, but I'm guessing. Starting out, where they may fall into the trap of thinking they need to know everything, or they're embarrassed to say what they don't know. Or again, it goes back to what I teach my kids: be curious, be okay with learning. Don't worry about being right.
Yes.
Learn, ask as many questions as possible. Question everything, right? Even me, I'm fine with telling you why I've said, I've asked you to do something. But again, it goes back to time in this life. And one of the greatest things that a friend ever did for me, my brilliant friend, much smarter than I, we would always talk about time. And she recommended a book to me when I was like 25. And it's Einstein's Dreams by Alan Lightman.
Okay.
And it talks about time in different forms and how it's affecting. Oh God, it's such a good book. Everyone should read that book.
I just wrote it down. We talk about a lot of books on the podcast. I'm an avid reader and always looking for good book recommendations. So
I think when you read that, you'll be like, oh, now I get it. Like, because Einstein's Dreams. Yeah. I think Alan Lightman was a physicist.
Okay.
That was his trade, but it wasn't something that opened my eyes to something I'd never thought about. It was more like a validation of how I kind of already thought about time and just the effect and the different ways to view it. But check that book out. It's a short read. It's
Do you think it'd be better to read a physical copy of it, or would it be okay to listen to as an audiobook? Because I do
oh
both, but I've
man.
found some books are not as good to listen to. You got to kind of, at least for me, I've got to kind of reread certain sections. And is it more of a read the hard copy?
Yeah, I'm such an old school person. Like I like reading the old paperback. For me is just the feel, the texture, the smell, and everything. That
Yeah.
one definitely read physical
Okay.
copy. A lot of
Got it.
times when I read like books about business or like entrepreneurship or scaling or whatever it is, like it's uh, audio is fine. Like I love listening to podcasts. How I Built This is one of my favorite podcasts.
It's great.
But that book. Yeah, you want to hold that book. You
Yeah.
want to hold that in your hand.
Well, that's something for the last couple of years I've been trying to really build up my library of physical books. So I'm going to order it today. Appreciate the recommendation.
It's cool, man. It's there's a couple tearjerker chapters, man. So
All right, I'm all
ready.
for it. I like to dive deep in that sort of stuff, and that's a good segue to kind of go ahead and start wrapping this up. I mean, like I said, I could literally sit here and talk to you all day, and we'll have to find a time to have you come back on the podcast at some point and kind of give
Yeah,
us an
anytime.
update. And so many good things that you've shared with us today, and so many things I'd love to have you expand even further on. But before I let you go, I wrap up every episode with what I call the lightning round. So these are the same 4 questions that I ask every guest that comes on the podcast, and they're purely selfish because they're things that I'm fascinated with, and so I love hearing how other successful people think about these same types of things. So the first lightning round question is simply, what is the best piece of advice you've ever received? And that could be in business or just in general, life advice.
Let me think about that for a sec. So I'll say this. I'll say this. I don't have like a quote to give you, right? A lot of people have a quote for you, but how about? And I don't know where this came from, but just understanding. I wish I could give credit to this. It may have been something I read or whatever, but something that's really always stuck with me is understand. And it's kind of a 2-part. Understand that everything is connected,
Mm,
right?
mm,
And where you are today is based on your successes and failures, right? So be okay with that, right? Like,
so
like,
don't regret the failures, basically.
yeah, because the fail, it's almost like, you're quoting like a business book or like a self-help book, but really failures aren't bad if you do something about it, if you learn from it, right? And sometimes thank God that thing failed, right?
Right? Yeah.
Think about like a relationship you were in uh, that ultimately failed,
Yep.
and later on you're like, oh, thank goodness we're not still right.
Yeah. 100%.
So really, just really value where you are and what got you there. So that advice for me has really sort of, what that means to me is respect where you are, respect where you're going, and don't be so damn hard on yourself.
No, I love that. And I mean, we were talking about that even before we started recording, is just kind of getting comfortable with failure and this kind of concept that failure is not a bad thing. It's actually how you learn and how you grow, as long as you're not, having the
Yeah,
same failures over and over again, then it could
exactly.
become a bad thing. But I haven't really thought about it necessarily in those terms. And I actually just wrote all of this down as you were talking. Understand that everything is connected, your success and your failures. And then I wrote underneath that, don't regret the failures. I think that's
Yeah.
huge.
Yeah, let the failure just be that fork in the road, right? Like just
Yeah.
let it be, again, like I said, I mean, so many things in my life where I felt were a failure actually were a huge gift.
Yeah.
It's all
Yeah. I know.
perspective. It's all perspective on where you are, right? And also, don't weigh your life or value your life on wins and losses, right? Because, are you happy? Okay, I'll go to this. Are you happy where you are today? Right?
Yeah.
Yes or no?
Yeah.
Right? Right? If am I happy where I am right now? Absolutely.
Yeah. Good.
Absolutely. Have I made a lot of mistakes? Oh my God, so many. Right?
Will I
But
make more mistakes?
of course,
Without question.
I hope I do, because if I don't, then that's just kind of boring. Like I say to my youngest son, who always wants to win. He's the youngest, so he's got that thing going.
Yeah.
And I'm
Yeah.
like, if you win every time, it becomes boring. There's nothing
That's right.
special about it. So how are you going to celebrate your wins if you never have any losses?
Yeah.
So this is
That's
kind
good
of
advice. I love it, man. That's gold right there. All right. Next question is, do you have a morning routine of any sort? Anything that you try to do every morning to prime yourself for a successful day?
Yeah, it's funny, because I have looked into so many different morning routines. Hey, I get up at 4 and I get on the bike, or I have time to meditate, and that's just not my life. I have two young sons,
Yeah.
and
Right.
our morning routine. You know what? I'll have something. I have a share for this morning. I'll tell you my morning this morning, because I had an amazing morning,
Awesome.
because both of my sons went back to school today. Um, and the morning today, because we've been out of sync because they've been home or virtual, whatever, so had to get up earlier and the whole thing. And my
Yeah.
morning was chaos, right? It
Yeah.
was chaos. My wife and I are trying to have coffee. We're trying to make their lunches, trying to get them to, eat their breakfast, turn off the cartoon.
Yeah.
It was just chaos. And I'm half asleep. It's like 6 in the morning, and I'm not a seriously early riser. I'm not this 5 a.m. guy. I've tried. I'm just not that. I'm more of a night owl. So I like
Yeah.
to leave
Same.
everybody to bed.
Same.
But I had such a beautiful moment this morning of, like, a lot of times people think something is chaos when actually it's just a beautiful ballet. And that's what this morning was. And it was just, I'm doing this, my wife is doing this, I'm trying to get my 5-year-old to brush his teeth, this the whole, like, it looked like a scene out of, like, Mr. Mom,
Yeah.
but and it all worked, right? It was chaotic, and eat this, brush your teeth, did you brush your hair, oh my God, where are your socks? It was just chaos. But then all of a sudden it was like, what a beautiful, perfect morning. And so I would be remiss if I didn't say that is, for me, the best morning routine in the world, is to wake up, see my beautiful wife, my amazing kids. I'm able to provide what they need as far
Yeah.
as their breakfast and their cartoons, and and their clothes and their school they're going to, the car that they're going to ride in safely to school. So my morning routine, a lot of times, even though I'm half asleep, I'm barely getting coffee in my mouth, just that's where you're in the right spot.
I love that, man. That is beautiful. And yeah, I think you make a really valid point. Whether you have kids or not, right? But I mean, life is chaotic the majority of the time, right? And I think so often, what people are kind of like in their head, what they're working towards is like, to get past the chaos and, to get to this kind of more calm, like peaceful place. But I think a lot of times if we step back and really look at it, it's like the chaos is what makes life so beautiful, right? I mean, like you
Yeah,
couldn't picture your morning any other way without your kids running around and, being surrounded by your family. And yeah, it might seem a little bit hectic, but would you rather be there all by yourself alone? Like, no, you wouldn't trade that for anything. Same. It was very similar to my morning trying to get our daughter off to school. Like I can totally relate. We've got
totally.
number two on the way, and my wife and I's mantra lately has been, because we've got two new businesses we started this year, another franchise we just bought into and are launching in 2021, and our second kid due in December. It's like we're just getting comfortable with chaos. Like that's what it's all about. Like we'd be bored otherwise, and
Similar lives, man. Similar lives. I totally get it. And had I not had my experience, I wouldn't understand, and be able to fully respect what you're going through. Like, I get it, dude. Like,
yeah.
get
Well,
after it, bro.
like to your point, like I've looked at a lot of different morning routines, and like I have a morning routine that, if I'm diligent and disciplined and like wake up early enough before everyone else, like I have a kind of a set thing that I know my day will be better if I kind of go through these couple little things that I've learned over the years. But I've tried a lot of things. I've listened to a lot of different people that like, hey, I've got the perfect morning routine. And it's like, well, you clearly don't have kids, bro. Uh,
Exactly.
or you
Pretty
don't
sure
need
too.
sleep, one.
Yeah.
but you know, it's a question I like to ask because without doubt, every successful person has found something, even if it's simply finding one moment in a chaotic morning to step back and appreciate what they have, that sets them up for success that day and kind of, you know, guides their vision for that day. And so that's why I like to ask the question, because no one has the same morning routine, right? But most
Yeah.
successful people have kind of found something, even if it's just something very small that really works well for them. So I love that answer. You already gave us a great book recommendation, but I'm curious, what book are you reading right now?
I'm like one of those crazy people that goes through like 2 or 3 books at a time.
Yeah, I do the same.
Yeah. So, yeah, for somebody who swears by efficiency, kind of
Well, I'm usually
call
listening to
BS on
one,
that.
I'm reading one. I've usually got at least two going at a time.
Yeah. So I'm reading a book that one of my fellow EO members recommended called Big Enough, because
Okay.
I am talking about thinking about scaling, and that book is all talking about, hey, make it big enough that fits you,
Mm,
right?
yeah.
It's your lifestyle. So
Yeah. Yeah.
when she told me about that, I was like, oh my God, I really need to read this right now. And then I'm really dorking out and trying to get my business chops up, because I did not go to business school, but I'm reading McKinsey's book on valuation. So again,
Okay.
another book that's just talking about, as you scale or whatever. Um, I'm not currently looking to create an exit for myself, not even close, but I do, want to learn more about valuation and things like that.
Well,
And then
it's smart.
yeah, it's smart, right? Because be ready. So one day, in many years from now, or whatever happens, I'll been running my business in a way that makes it the most valuable, most profitable. I mean, why would I not do that? It seems ridiculous.
Well, I was talking to a guy I know a little bit that's involved in private equity, and you know they either invest in businesses or they help businesses that are looking to be acquired find a buyer. A lot of times, other private equity firms, and you know, he was basically telling me, he's like, usually by the time we get introduced to a company, like let's say their goal is to sell within the next year to 2 years, it's 2 to 3 years too late for us to really help them maximize their valuation. He said,
Yeah.
and that's one of the things he was, you know, kind of reaching out to me. It was like, hey, you know, you talk to a lot of these franchise companies, a lot of them are kind of smaller and emerging, like, you know, make some introductions because we can work with them for years and years and years and help them set themselves up so that when the time is right to exit, they're going to get maximum valuation. And he said, it's amazing how, you know, an extra year or two of us working with a company can add, you know, 10, 15 million, you know, to their valuation. It's nuts.
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at your multiples, right? Like, what are you going
Yeah.
to do? And plus, some people just look at understanding your numbers as when you're looking at exiting, but like, don't you want to be running a business that's completely solvent, like really know your numbers,
What a
right?
crazy concept, right?
Crazy idea. So that's another thing, is like having a small business like I do, we're able to do that early on. So like, let's say we start to grow. Well, we don't have to go back and redo things. We can grow as we do. We know where we are. We can then just continue to match where we're going, and also be ahead, like where we want to go. So that goes back to vision and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm a firm believer in that. And then the third book I'm reading, which is just, I'm really enjoying, I just started, is Jim Carrey's new book, Memoirs and Misinformation.
Oh, I didn't know he had a book out.
Yeah, he's an interesting dude, man. I don't know if you've checked out his paintings and all that, but he's just,
I have, and I've you
he's
know
a,
heard him talk a little bit, you know, because he hasn't been as active in Hollywood and stuff lately, and I've just kind of heard him talk a little bit about, you know, I know he's really big on, you know, just doing what you want to do in life, and kind of what you were talking about earlier, which is not doing it just because it's kind of on paper what you're supposed to be doing. So yeah, he's a very interesting guy, very, very intelligent, and you know, pretty it seems like he just does a lot of self-reflecting. So I'd definitely be interested to check out his book.
yeah, it's pretty cool. It's
And I'll tell you, if he has an audio book and he reads it, I'm definitely listening to it. If he's the one actually narrating the audio version.
yeah, I'd listen to that too, man.
Yeah.
That'd be a good one in the car. That'd be a
Hell
good one in
yeah.
the car.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
Awesome, man. Well, good book recommendation. So final question of the lightning round is, what is your definition of freedom, and are you living it?
Yeah, again, it all goes back to time for me. So time for me is freedom,
Yeah.
and freedom is time. And I like to have options,
Hmm.
right? I don't like to be forced into anything. I can be very claustrophobic in a lot of ways. Um, so one thing I like to be able to create my own, again, this goes back to failure and success and all that kind of stuff. Like I think a great way to look about freedom as far as a business, I like to be able to own my own failures and then do something about it.
Ooh, I like that.
So I don't have to wait on somebody above me or whatever to say if we have a budget to do it or we shouldn't do it now or whatever. I really like the idea of like, this isn't working and I'm going to fix it right now. And I'll say this. So let me just expand on that because, this is very important to me. If I broke it down, I like to be able to say yes. I like to be able to say no. And I love to be able to say, I don't know yet. Right. And not be forced into a decision. I really like that. I like to be able to say, I don't know yet. I don't know yet. I'm going to need more time. So I really like that. That's probably one of my favorite things and I learned that at Blue Man too. When I had earned that respect, I'd earned that trust, I'd earned that sort of whatever, where I was like, I don't know yet. I know you want an answer right now, but I don't know yet because I'm not going to give you an answer just to give you an answer because you've asked or what you want to hear. Like, I'm going to really think about this and then I'll give you, I'm not going to wait 6 months to give it to you, but like right now, I just don't know.
That's a good way of looking at it.
Having that. I like having that is freedom to me, saying, I don't know yet.
I love that. I haven't had it put that way on the podcast. I get a lot of really interesting answers to that question and a lot of similarities, freedom of your time, more flexibility with your schedule, ability to work hard on the things that you want to work on, which I all agree, that's part of, freedom in your life. But, the ability to say, I don't know, that's a good one. I also like what you said, the ability to own my own failures and then do something about it.
Yeah.
That's good.
That's very freeing.
Yeah, it is.
It's personal freedom, right? Like having the maturity and the experience to be okay with not knowing yet. I don't know.
Yeah.
And I think that comes from experience, right? Like somebody young in a profession, or maybe they're just like well beyond their years, but like you feel like, oh God, I got to answer this, or I have to know the answer to this. And it's like, just pause, bro. I don't know, man. Like this is a lot of information, no matter what it is. It like could be a lot of information, whatever it is, or it might be a new challenge. Hey, what do you want to do about this? I don't know yet.
Yeah.
I'm still working on that, right?
It's a hard one, right? Yeah, that's hard. But even being in a position to where you have more flexibility to give that sort of an answer versus being kind of forced to answer, it's a very freeing feeling. Well, Matt, man, I cannot thank you enough for coming on and doing this with me. Quickly let people know, where can people connect with you? Where can they check out your business? Where can people find you if they want to learn a little bit more about you?
Yeah, right on. And again, before I start plugging myself, I want to thank you, man, because you're such a great dude. I'm so glad we met. What you're doing is just right on. And I look forward to the opportunity to chat with you again and wish you and
absolutely
your current family and the one on the way and the multiple businesses. I think you might be crazier than me, but I absolutely applaud that. So
getting comfortable with chaos, baby. One day at a time.
Hey man, chaos is beautiful. As long as you know where you're going. So yeah, if you want to connect with us, the business is BES. So like Boy Edward Sam, BEScleaning.com.
Okay.
If you want to reach out to me, we're on Facebook and all that kind of stuff. But if you want to reach out to me, I'm just Matt Sullivan on LinkedIn. So
awesome.
Come drop me a line. Love to chat with you.
We'll post those on the show notes. And again, man, so glad that we connected. Absolutely looking forward to staying in touch. You're definitely the type of person I like to surround myself with. I've only just recently gotten to know you, but every time we've talked, it's been an inspiring conversation. And, just really appreciate you. And congratulations on, making this leap into business ownership and the amazing accomplishments that you've had so far. And I have no doubt you're only getting started. So absolutely looking forward to staying connected and, watching you continue to grow your business and any other ventures that you get into. But thanks so much for dropping in on the Path to Freedom podcast, Matt.
Yeah, man. Again, thank you. It's really been my pleasure. I appreciate it.
Right on.